I recently heard a local pastor talking on the topic of dating, and he said something that totally resonated with me. And he was just like, you know, sometimes I'll say what I think Scripture says, but other times it's just kind of my personal opinion. And that meant so much to me because I was like, that's how I feel. Like, a lot of times I'm just trying to give answers based off of what I feel like I know from looking at our generation, and also what I know to be true about the heart of God and the wisdom of God. But oftentimes I think you guys are asking me stuff, especially Christians are asking me, because you want this exact formula and you want to know exactly what it's going to look like. And one of those questions that I get often is, you know, how do we be careful with our emotional boundaries? How do we set emotional boundaries? And how do we know when is an appropriate time to share something in a relationship? I want to know what happened with you and Phoebe. Did you guys talk about kids, pups? So one of my first videos that I ever shot was on emotional boundaries, but apparently none of you guys thought that was good enough, because I still get questions about that all the time. Emotional boundaries, and like, when is it appropriate in a relationship to share something intimate about our past or whatever. And so I'll give it another go. But I think it's so interesting that we ask this, because we're wanting to know, like, how does this exactly work, and when should I do it, and what's the formula for me? Because we are a formulaic society and generation, and as much as our generation is pulled and we say, no, we no longer want 3 steps to anything, we just want everything to be holistic and organic. No, we're still drawn to that. We still want answers. We want to do things right because we don't want to feel pain, right? So if I know when exactly I should share something in a relationship, or how exactly to set these emotional boundaries, then I won't get hurt. Well, newsflash, you're probably going to get hurt. But what you can do is you can ask God for wisdom to navigate relationships as best as possible. And you know, there are certain formulas you can follow, things you can learn. Like, I love John Van Epps' book, How to Avoid Falling in Love with a Jerk. And he breaks relationships up into like 5 or 6 components, and he just says the safest way to be in a relationship is to have these all progress as your relationship progresses over time. But if like one of them or 2 of them are totally progressing and the others aren't, you're kind of opening the door to some dysfunction. But the reason I don't like formulas and us trying to know exactly how a relationship's going to look is that we then neglect to invite the Spirit of God into each situation, each case-by-case thing. So what I might tell, you know, Walter of how to behave in a relationship is probably going to be different than I might tell my friend Nancy, because I know Nancy. I don't really know a Nancy, but and a Walter, I know where they're at, and so I'm going to be prayerful about how they need to proceed in this specific relationship. A few of the questions that I've gotten are stuff like, you know, when do I share about my past? You know, I'm dating someone right now and I know they're divorced, but they haven't brought it up. When do I share that I know they've been divorced, or why aren't they sharing? I mean, the fact that you and Fifi got a divorce is a pretty big deal, and I would probably share that with anybody you want to enter in a relationship with, specifically me. You know, or I've been raped. At what point in a relationship do you share that? And you know, my heart goes out to all these situations, but I don't know you. So I can't tell you when I think a good time would be. But what I can share is my personal experience of the power of inviting the Spirit of God into situations where you're like, when, or how, or what. And those 2 stories are both based in cemeteries. As I said, I love cemeteries. And so probably like a number of years ago, I was hurt deeply by someone. And I had a lot of frustration with that person, and so over the course of a year I just journaled of questions I had, and why did they do this, and we didn't have much communication. And so I always knew, I was like, if there's an opportunity to talk with them face to face, I'm going to ask them all these questions and I'm going to get these answers. And so finally, about a year later, we made plans to meet, and of course I chose a cemetery, and we were planning to meet. But before I went, I felt kind of convicted of like, Joy, why are you wanting all these questions answered? Why? Do you want something to hold over this person's head? Are you gonna, you know, prove that you're right? You know, what's your motivation? And I didn't really know my motivation. All I knew is that I wanted these questions answered. So I prayed and I said, okay, God, you know, if you don't want me to know the answers to these questions, then just make me forget the questions that I should not ask this person. And I prayed that genuinely, but deep down I knew there's no way I'm going to forget these questions, because I've been mulling over them for the last year. So we get together, we have a meeting. Afterwards, I'm exhausted, I take a nap, and I literally like woke up out of the nap going, I didn't ask this question that I wanted to ask. And I was so bummed, and I was like, I've got to know. And then it was like, God kind of just stirred my spirit and said, Joy, remember you invited me into that conversation. You asked me to make you forget the questions that you weren't supposed to ask, and I did. So now you need to close the book on those questions, and you need to let go of the fact that you're not going to have an answer. And so I was really like frustrated, but at the same time I was like, wow, God was in the midst of that. He cared about that conversation. I felt known and I felt remembered. So then fast forward, this last year, I was friends with someone, and well, I am friends with this person, but I had something that I was like, I need to share this with them, but I don't know how and I don't know when, and God, do you really want me to share it with them? And I was like, okay, God, if you do, you have to make it totally clear that this is the time and place that you want me to share with this person. So we were here in this cemetery, we had gone for a walk, and then we were sitting right here in this spot, and they were sitting right next to me, shoulder to shoulder. We were in the dark, and we were talking about something totally unrelated. I wasn't even thinking about that thing that I thought I needed to share with them. And the night seemed like it was coming to a close. We were about to stand up and leave, and there was a pause, and the friend just said, hey, is there anything else that you want to share with me? And I was like, oh, okay, I guess this is the time. And I did. And the response from that friend was exactly what I needed to hear. And it was super healing for me, and it made me feel so known by this friend, but again, it made me feel known and remembered by God. And so that's what I want to say with emotional boundaries and knowing when and where and how to do things in relationships. You know, you can read books and you can do the best that you can in a formulaic way, but don't underestimate the power of praying for wisdom and inviting the Spirit of God into these specific situations. He will show up, and it'll be incredible. So, yeah. I never know how to end these.
On the next Ask Joy, Joy attempts to get Walter to open up about his issues with shaggy hair guilt.
This is gonna go anywhere. What did Phoebe mean to you?